Welcome to the Rock and Wellness Podcast, the show that takes you on a voyage to better health, wellness, and happiness that will rock your world. With me, Rachel Joy Olson, your host, your coach, and your biggest fan. Hi, welcome to episode 13 of the Rock and Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Rachel Joy Olson. As a health and wellness coach, I have been helping people gain better health and stepping into the life they desire for over 2 decades. One of my biggest passions, besides food and fitness, is teaching people how to meditate and practice yoga to strengthen and stretch the body, clear the mind, and connect with the soul. That's why today I am super excited to be here with my guest, Kimberly Festa. Kim and I met while doing our yoga teacher training together a few years ago. Kimberly Festa recently retired from the corporate world after 37 successful years. During Kim's tenure, her main passion was to understand people and to provide knowledge on different modalities of yoga. Kim is a certified yoga instructor and just recently completed her level 1 Kundalini yoga certification. Kim is also a Reiki master practitioner, and in her spare time, she is often looking for ways to expand her knowledge on how to better serve people as they live their lives holistically while aging gracefully. So Kim is very pleased to offer and share the power of both yoga and Reiki healing. Yoga and Reiki can help you find your life's purpose, adopt a healthier lifestyle, heal emotional wounds, and help alleviate physical pain. As the energy gently raises your vibration over time, it can deepen your spiritual life and become a source of inspiration. So welcome, Kim, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here with me today.
Thank you for having me, Rachel. I'm looking forward to it.
So let's get started here, Kim. I know that you'd sent over a couple of really great quotes for me today, but I am just really excited to be speaking to you about Kundalini and your journey with Kundalini and just really what people can learn about the science of meditation and why meditation is such an important thing to add into our daily routine.
Yeah, so thanks for asking that question, Rachel. And I think that, Kundalini is an interesting modality of yoga. It is the yoga of awakening. It uses the energy within our body, within the universe, and taps into our what we call our energy centers, whether it be the chakras, if you want to call it that, or we have the bodies, the 10 bodies. And in the 10 bodies happen to be 3 minds, the positive mind, the negative mind, and the neutral mind. And that's really where we want to come to from a place of yoga, whether it be any type of yoga, is the union of the body and the mind, and the body and the mind and the spirit. So with that, why is meditation so big nowadays? And that is, in my mind, it's more about, it's not just the physical body that we're worried about here. It's also about how do we come from a place holistically? How do we come from a place of authenticity and vibrate in this frequency to allow us to live our lives fully, to the fullest that we can be in our life, knowing full well that we're spiritual beings living a human experience. So that in mind, it's about how do we not necessarily control the mind, but how do we no longer become the servant of the mind? And just to kind of quote one of the famous gurus, Guru Nanak said, by conquering your mind, you can conquer the world. I love that one because it's about how do you no longer be the servant and how do you live successfully, happily, and flow with prosperity as a result of the mastering of the mind. So how do you rope in the mind? And it's so complex. There's so much science being done. Science is just now catching up with the philosophies and the yogic science that's been out there for 5,000 plus years.
It's really great to actually have that science, though, isn't it? So now I think it's being taken a little bit more seriously in the Western world.
It is, because it's all about proving is believing. And so if you can prove the science of the white paper, as we like to call it, even my own self will often say, okay, where is the science? I understand the voodoo or the unknown, but it just doesn't sit as well with scientific mind. And our brain is very analytical.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs it. It's hungry for it. And once you see the science, then you say, oh, well, then maybe there is some value in it. It's unfortunate, actually, because if you can go the other way around, we would actually adapt much better and just embracing it.
We
So
would, right? And I think it's also there's that point of that you and I both know. I think we teach people in our sessions that we have to almost just release ourselves from any of the attachments of the physical world and learn to trust.
absolutely, it's all seeing, it's all knowing, it's all loving. And it's so easy. It's so easy. You think that just, sitting still, how hard can it be to sit still? And the unfortunate part is that us as human beings will absolutely look at everything possible before we sit still. We'll go do our laundry. We'll go do our shopping list. we'll do everything possible before we'll sit still. But that's the journey, is sitting with the person and sitting with you and sitting with the inner self, as opposed to all of um, the social media that's out there now, and being with, you always want to be with people. And unfortunately, as we're living through our own current condition in this current climate that we're in, it is about being with yourself, and it is finding who you are. And unfortunately, people are finding out some interesting things about themselves. And it's not the easiest thing to do, Rachel, right? It's not easy to sit there and allow the mind to be busy. And the mind is busy. It was created that way. It was created to analyze. It is automatic. The mind is very automatic. And it's always about, moving. We're always moving with the mind. So how do we embrace that moving mind, but at the same time come to a point of stillness? And there is the nectar, and within the lotus flower, as we call it, right? And it's about balancing the sweet spot. It sounds easy. It is by far not easy. If it was that easy, I think we'd all be doing it all the time.
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned the current climate that we're in, because even when so many of us were locked down, I know that some of, us have been able to get back to the world, but a lot of people, I've had a lot of conversations to people about, like you said, they're learning a lot about themselves, and some of these things might be easy and some of these things are not easy to learn about themselves. But like you said, the mind just kind of continues to run and it always wants to move. And we just have to make sure that we can learn and use the tools like anything else, like we would in a fitness center, just learn how to train it.
Absolutely, because the mind is extremely powerful, and it is, if you would just, I mean, the things that we've learned about the mind is, I often say to people, is move the body first. Physically move the body, generate some heat, get the body moving, get it flowing, get the blood flowing, and then come to a place of stillness. And if you look at the true science behind yoga, that's exactly what it was. In the Western world, we adapted the asanas, we adapted the physical practice, and we forgot about all the rest. And unfortunately, the physical practice was created so that we could come to a place of stillness. That was the reason behind the physical practice, is to get into the asanas, move the body, and then all of a sudden you can sit still. You can sit in a place of peace and a place of stillness. And yeah, the mind's still going to come with thoughts. That's the way it was programmed. It's a very smart tool. It's there to analyze. It's there to keep us safe, and it works that way. And so you just honor that, and you learn, to your point, to change the pattern in which your thoughts come in, the conscious mind, as opposed to the unconscious mind. So
That's
that's kind of
right.
what meditation is.
That's great. I love that. So I get a lot of questions from people that say, well, what is even meditation? Because a lot of people I think are confused about that term, right? Oh, just go meditate. Oh, just go meditate. And it sounds a lot easier than it actually is. So what would you say is actual, maybe a good definition of meditation?
That's a good question. I think it is a place of stillness. I like to use that word because that word resonates with a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't mean sitting still. I mean, you like to sit still and stay in the body, in the moment, but don't come to a place where you're uncomfortable, because the mind gets itchy. The mind is extremely active. And the more we live in the sympathetic nervous system, that more of that fight or flight or that hamster in a wheel, the more the mind will become busier and busier. So you almost have to channel the mind down. And that may be fidgeting, because the mind will send off, call it electrolyte or electricity, for lack of a better word, and say, you're itchy here, or you need to move here, or it'll give you a pain, or it'll give you thoughts. They'll be like, I call it like the commercials, right? You'll think the commercials flashing in and out. The key to a meditation, though, is sitting in a place of stillness as much as you can, to allow the mind to come to the surface and allow the thoughts to come in, but don't become attached to the thoughts. And don't allow the thoughts we often love to tell a story around those thoughts. We like to hook into those. We call it the hook. We like to hook into those stories. And you try not to. You see, you're a place of a neutral mind, as opposed to the negative and the positive mind. And you become from a place of neutrality, where you become the witness of the stories, without attachments, without a story, without labeling, without, all the things we do in the human world that we like to do. But again, honoring the practice, if it comes to a point where you can't sit still, then shift a bit and then come back into it. Deepen your breath so that you can hook the mind, the body in one. The breath is very powerful. You'll often, I always tell people before they do their meditation, just sit. If you're in a place of your mind is going 90 miles an hour, you have a high anxiety or a sense of, I can't calm down, I'm frazzled, just sit for a moment and deeply breathe. Diaphragmatic breathing, all of a sudden will hook the mind into the present moment, and it'll be there. How long it stays there it's up to you, really, in the grand scheme of things, or it's up to the mind, really.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I like that. I like how you said that, a person doesn't exactly have to force themselves to sit still, right? Because sometimes forcing yourself maybe in a position that's causing your body strain isn't so good. And then that's all you can think about. So what are some things then you can tell the listeners on some best ways to best prepare for meditation?
So the first thing is that I always do is I think about the room I'm in. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have, if you're lucky enough to, as I have over the years, I've been able to create my own space. So carve out your own space. It doesn't have to be a big space. I often say to people, if it's a place in your home or outdoors, in your car for that matter, that you find peace, calmness, and that you feel that you can become who you are without, the face masks, as we call it, and all the different things that we love to label ourselves with, is, find that space first. It doesn't have to be a big space, it can be a small space. As a matter of fact, the first time I ever did meditation, I did it in my closet. And I used to laugh about that. And it was kind of like, it was a place that I didn't wake up anybody. I had young children at home. I had a working husband. And my practice was at 4:00 in the morning. So I'm like, how am I going to get up at 4:00 in the morning and not wake up the whole house? So I literally put myself in the closet. And it wound up being a place of peace for me. It was funny as that sounds, but I made it my own. I made it my little altar. So again, think about quietness. Think about, comfy furniture perhaps, or a pillow. Think about how when would be the best time to meditate. A lot of people think 4:00 in the morning. Kim, are you crazy? And I get why 4:00 in the morning is not the most attractive for a lot of people. But you know what? 4 to 7 at night is also equally beneficial to the body and beneficial to the mind. So think about that. It doesn't always have to be 4 in the morning. It could be 4 at night, or it could be 5 at night. Even if it's 20 minutes, find your time, carve out time, invest in you. And I often say to people, once you find that space, then think about the clothing you're wearing. Think about natural fibers, not necessarily synthetic fibers. Think about, the cottons, for example, the linens. They're so wonderful. Put nice clothing on. Put it in, especially for yourself. I love bright clothing. I love white clothing because all colors start with the color of white. So I love white. And then when you sit down and have a nice tall spine, opening that nervous system up, opening up what we call the shushma, the nervous channel that comes up through the brain, allows that energy to move up the body. And then think about it from a perspective of, as you sit down, you find your place, you got the beautiful clothing on that makes you feel good, then breathe. Just deeply breathe. Diaphragmatic breath. Just slow down. Let it all go. And then lastly, some of the things that I always like to do is there's mudras. So it channels the mudra, whether this is a prayer mudra. I want it to come from that inner peace. Maybe it's Gyan mudra, where I want to seal the ego and the inner wisdom within. There's just a combination of many. There's tons of mudras out there. And then just slow down. Let go. Turn off everything. Turn off all the electricity, all the electrical devices. I often like a dull, dark room, as you can tell behind me. This is one of my rooms, and I just love quietness. And for me, it's quiet. It used to be a lot at the beginning. It had to be music. I had to have music to keep me focused. So start small, be patient. Often there's days where you can't do it, then don't do it. Like, don't beat yourself up, but if you can, try to do it the same time every day. And then I'll get into why durations later on in this podcast.
Perfect. It's funny how you mention get rid of the electronics, because that's really a practice that I think all of us need to adopt a little bit in our life. And I think even if a person says, well, I can't sit still, maybe the practice could simply be turning off the phone, right? Getting away from the phone for an hour, taking that time for yourself and just minimize distractions. Right? Because I mean, you as a mom, the only place you could find was a closet. Really, I mean, you were distracted all day long, probably with 2 little kids, and that was your solace. That was your time. Right now, I just have a quick question about the time that you suggested. So the 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. or the 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. What is the magic behind those times?
So in the yogic philosophy or in the yogic science, is that we truly believe, and actually the culture coming out of India, is that you want to control, you want to get up before sunrise first and foremost. And it's not just because it's hot in India, that's part of the reason. But the other part is you want to control your conscious mind. And you want to control what your thoughts are. So often what we'll do is before we get into REM sleep, we will get up. As hard as that was, when I first started doing it, I thought, oh my God, there's just no way. Why am I up at this hour of the day? And you get up and you take control of your conscious mind. You take control of your life as opposed to being downloaded by the universe or whatever it is, or what's happened in the past. You take control of it. So those are the peak hours of the morning of 4 o'clock to 7. And that's when it's the most quietest. That is when, instead of dreaming, we consciously process our mind. And we process our mind with this meditation. And then ideally, again, at 4 to 7 is when we're decompressing. The evening is coming to it, or the day is coming to the end. The sun is coming down or settling down for the night. And it's a great way to start, to end the day, let go of the day, and then decompress and be ready for sleep and have a beautiful sleep. I often would switch those up. Every now and then I would go from a 4 o'clock to 7 in the morning to 4 o'clock to 7 at night. And it sounds crazy, but I'll be honest, there's a lot of science behind that one, both the Western science world as well as the Eastern science, and around that 4 to 7.
Very cool. So as a person settles down to meditate, they are really closing their eyes, which is what a lot of people tend to do. So how should a person focus their eyes for meditation, and what are the benefits of some of those focal points?
Okay, that's a great question. There's lots of different eye gazes, as we call it. Often you'll hear roll your eyes up to the third eye point. It's kind of in between the eyebrow center, right at the front, a lobe right about here, if you can. And our attention is at the brow point. It's gentle, it's very gentle. It's not a forceful pressure. It's a little bit of pressure up into the third eye. And that stimulates the pituitary gland because that is the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe, the hypothalamus, the pituitary just sits behind that, and then of course the pineal. And those are the ones that you want to stimulate because that's what stimulates the endocrine system, the nervous system, and it just calms it down from a sympathetic to a parasympathetic. So you want to do that. If you can, you think about rolling up your eye. The second one is, and this is by no order, by no means, it's what you find benefits you. Tip of the nose, so looking down to the tip of the nose. And that controls the mind, which is locked in what we call a triangle. And it's when the optic nerve concentrates at the tip of the nerve, and it's great for the optic nerve, right in here. It's right in behind there. And we, from a yogic standpoint, we think of the 3 points of the brain are balanced. So the Ida, the Pingula, and of course the Shushmana, right? The left, the right, and the center. This stimulates the pineal gland. So we talked a bit about the pineal gland and the frontal lobe of the brain. And it creates a new energy pathways. Is kind of what we think is the tip of the nose. Then there's at the moon center, which is the chin. So it's a very calming. So think about it from a closed eye perspective, and then looking down, rolling those eyes down to the chin. It's a very cooling practice, and it kind of allows you to see yourself clearly, essentially. And then the next one is at the crown center, so what we call the 10th gate or the top of the head. Always open. The eyes are closed, and then we roll it way up. I'm not the most successful at that one. That's one that can sometimes cause some pressure for me in particular, and I've heard that from other people. So beware of that. Just think about it, play around. And that is the eyes are closed, and we roll upwards, and we're looking up at this as if we're looking up through the top, and that's tapping in to the universe. This stimulates the pineal and the crown energy center as we open ourselves up to the universe. And then the third or the last one that I've put down here are the eyes are 1/10 open or 9/10 open. And again, it's you're shutting down what we call the drishti. We're pulling our eyes down, and we can see like 1/10 of light. And that one's really good actually if you suffer from headaches. It's a great way of just calming down the body. It stimulates the optic nerve as well, slightly, and it, as we say, it kind of calms you and it kind of develops your intuition. So again, eye gazes, play around with some eye gazes. Third eye is very common. Looking up at the crown center. There's lots of options available to you. But again, it's opening up the frontal lobe and it's opening up optic nerve. I don't know if you know this, but I have a great friend, and Rachel, you know her, Carol Hutchinson. She's an orthopedic surgeon who is also a yoga teacher, and she taught both Rachel and I. And because she opens up bodies, the fluid in the eye is actually found, that same fluid is found in the pineal gland. So I thought that was really cool. We always talk about it as the gateway to the soul. How true is that? Looking at people's eyes, going deep within the soul of the human being.
It's so fascinating. You learn about the physical body and how it really is connected to that emotional or spiritual body. But thank you for sharing those eye placements. I think that's very fascinating. And I like that you gave some options because then people or the listeners can choose. So for example, like you said, if you just need a calming technique, right, then you can look with the eyes open just slightly, right? But if you do need to, maybe be a little bit more inspired, then, your eyes can go in a different way up to the crown energy center or something like that. So I love that. I like that there's different options because I think it's not quite,
it's good to know that it's not just a matter of just sitting there with the eyes closed and letting the eyes roll around the head. Because sometimes people are like, what do I even do with myself? Right. So let's kind of moving on now. So we're in meditation. We have, our eyes set to how we want them to be set. We feel really great. So now the question is, how long should we be meditating? And what are the benefits of the different lengths of meditation?
Okay, so that's a great one. And there's some yogic science behind this one. And they're doing lots of studies in Harvard, in a variety of different places, both in, I'm looking at it from a perspective of the science behind why is the timing, like how long should I meditate? So first thing first, don't freak out because these numbers go a little bit crazy. I remember when I first saw these numbers, I went, oh my God, there's just no way I'm going to get to 2.5 hours. So let's start at the top. First things first, when you're first starting out your practice, 3 minutes. Just do it for 3 minutes, same time every day, and try that. And we'll get into duration. 3 minutes affects the electromagnetic field, the circulation and the stability of the blood, believe it or not. 3 minutes of meditation. Imagine that, just 3 minutes. Then go into 11 minutes. If you can go from 3, maybe do it for 2 weeks, do it for 3 weeks, and then embrace it and say, hey, I'm going to try 11 minutes. So 11 minutes, what does that do? It begins to change the nerve and the glandular system within the body, which is phenomenal. 11 minutes. 11 minutes will do that. 22 minutes. Let's go to the next one. It balances the 3 minds, the negative, the positive, and the neutral. We have 3 minds. And often we sit in the negative mind, not in a bad way, but the negative mind is the place where we want to feel safe. It keeps us safe. So a lot of us play in that negative field more so than we do in the positive, and specifically the neutral. So again, we want to imbalance those 3 minds in that 22 minutes. 31 minutes. It allows the glands, the breath, and the concentration to affect the cells and the rhythms of the body. Imagine that, 22 minutes. Now we're going into 31 minutes, which right away people are going, I ain't ever going there. You'd be surprised how quick 31 minutes go. If you can do it, it's like anything. It allows the glands and the breath, I think I said that one already, and it affects the cells and the rhythms. Let's talk about the 62 minutes, Rachel. 62 minutes, people would go, there's just no way I can sit still for 62 minutes. What does that do? It changes the gray matter in the brain. Like, wow, the subconscious shadow mind, we call it, and the outer projection are integrated. That's phenomenal, 62 minutes. And then let's just go right into the 2.5 hours, the yogi masters of them all. And that is, it changes the psyche and it creates a new pattern for the subconscious mind. Like, phenomenal. But again, don't freak out. It doesn't mean you have to go to 2.5 hours right off the bat. You may never get to 2.5 hours. Never. Just go to 3. Just look at what 3 minutes does. Or better yet, go to 11 minutes. 11 minutes for the next, 2 months, 3 months. Calm, especially now with what we're facing and we're being bombarded all over the place of different, whether the pandemic is going to continue or not continue. Spend 11 minutes of your life every day with you and just meditate. Just calm down the mind. Allow the mind to come up with different stories, but don't come attached with it. Just close down the eyes. Maybe you're looking at the tip of the nose, or maybe you're looking down with 1/10 open. And I'm going to do it for 3 minutes, or I'm going to do it for 11 minutes. And look at what happens in the next 11 minutes. Look back at your life. Start, and that's why I always say to people, do it at the same time every day. Write down, have a journal by, maybe journal before your meditation and journal after your meditation. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal where you start and where you end after that meditation.
I find it so fascinating to learn about these times and how it affects, because like you said at the very beginning, the mind is so powerful. So that if you look at what's actually happening to the physical body in just really not that much time, it's unbelievable. So, when you look at that, why is meditation, especially in this climate, not mandatory?
Ah, if I had my way, it would be mandatory in every, whether it be corporate world, whether it would be, schools. They're actually, if you go to different countries, they've seen a change in children, from detentions, kids that can't sit still. They're talking about, a change in people, children who are suffering from ADD or whatever the labeling that we love to throw in there, for lack of a better word. Just sitting with yourself calmly and just, unfortunately, a lot of us don't want to be with ourselves.
Yeah.
We're not happy with who we are. And we are the biggest critic of ourselves. So sit with it. Allow the emotions to rise. Allow the thoughts to arise. And just journal them down. I know a lot of people think journaling is crazy, but just you'd be surprised at what your thoughts are before a meditation and what your thoughts are after meditation and what your thoughts are before you've never meditated in your life, and then look at it again in a month's time and meditate. And you'll look back and you may find that there's darkness prior to any meditation and that there's lightness after meditation. Again, I don't want to set out expectations because some people can have the complete reverse of that. But again, sitting with whatever it is or who you are, with all your emotions, with all your thoughts and all your judgments, sit with them. I mean, can you not invest in yourself? And you wonder why we can't function in society right now, because we can't even sit with ourselves and fill ourselves up. We're too busy depleting it and giving ourselves away. And then we wonder why mental illness is on the rise and why emotional crisis is on the rise and physical well-being. Our physical bodies are breaking down. Yeah, because you haven't given yourself a chance. You haven't filled yourself up first.
That's right. I remember years ago, I had a coach tell me, start meditating every day and it will change your life. And I was like, whatever. I just, at the time I was like, you're crazy. How is sitting around just going, going to help me? And boy, I'll tell you, when I learned actually what it meant, what the reality of it was, it literally changes your life. Like, it changed my physical body. It changed my mental body. I mean, I still work at it because I think as a human being, there's lots more I need to change and to improve on. But I didn't believe her. And then I saw it for myself. It literally completely transforms our physical, mental, and soul body.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think there's not enough, to your point, there's not enough emphasis on it. And that is
Yeah.
exactly why it's coming around. We're now realizing that our Western world isn't just about the physical movement of the body, it's about the mental well-being. And it's, let's be honest, it's the physical body, in my mind, breaks down. It's the second part of your breakdown.
Yeah.
The mind goes first. And it's the mind and how you, to your point, Rachel, how you look at life. If you can't fill yourself up for 11 minutes, 3 minutes, I've said this to many clients, I've said this to many friends, many family members. You mean to tell me you can't sit for 3 minutes once a day and just, sit with yourself and just, and it's going to be, as you said, Rach, it's a constant project. It's a work in progress. And you will slip back. We all do. We all are human beings. We're all living it. To think that we're perfect, we're made perfect. I truly believe we're made perfect. But unfortunately, things come up in our lives, whether they be life lessons, whether there be, crises in our lives. And we don't have any trouble, Rach, and you know this, we don't have any trouble eating. We don't have any trouble, a lot of us have trouble sleeping right about now. But you know what I mean? Like we don't have any trouble doing other things. So why is it such a big deal to spend a day, once a day, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, I plead, I always say to people, spend just a moment by yourself.
It's funny.
Shut down
It's,
everything.
you know what? It's so true, because those are the most important minutes that a person will spend in their life. And as you know, I've been a health coach for a really, really long time and have my own journey and my own experience that I share with my clients. But I've over the years have added meditation practice into my coaching practice because it's that is changing people's lives. So women will come to me and say, I've got problems with food. I can't lose weight. I'm doing this. I'm doing all this, the tick the box, tick the box, tick the box. I'm doing all this and nothing's changing. And I said, well, now we need to work on that emotional and energetic and soulful body. You need to learn to love yourself, and you need to learn how to love yourself by sitting with yourself. Right. And I'll tell you what, that is the hardest piece of homework that I give to my clients. Because you're right. People are like, I can't sit there for 3 minutes. I can't sit there for a minute. Right. But then once people start to do it, all of a sudden making healthy food choices is easy. Taking care of their physical body is easy. It's no longer a struggle anymore. It just starts to happen. And most of the time when I start with my clients, they're like, there's no way, like this chick's off her rocker. Like there's no way sitting around for 3 minutes a day is going to change my food choices. And it does every single time, right? By the time we've gone through a few weeks of a process, they're like, I cannot believe I'm just naturally making healthy choices for myself. And it's not even a big deal anymore.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, sure, I struggle or whatever, but I notice I struggle when I lost my meditation practice, or I'm not taking care of myself, or I'm not loving myself.
Yeah.
Right. So that's how powerful it is.
Yeah. And we call it the garbage cleaner. We have so much garbage, and we have so much luggage, and we have so much life experiences, either whether it be this life or lives before us. Not necessarily everybody believes in that. I do.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that there's many past lives that have come through me in the soul, not the physical body, but the soul, and that it's time for you to clean out your stuff, sitting with your stuff, because then you won't spew out your stuff to other people, because other people don't need their stuff and yours. So, spend the time cleaning out the garbage, and you'll come to a place of happiness, loving, open, compassion, all those beautiful things. You come from a place of the heart, as opposed to this mind that just the egocentrical self. I'm going to work out, and I got to work out, and I'm going to put a whole bunch of crap in my body, and then I wonder why I feel terrible, right? So again, I agree. I think the thinking around meditation, if you look at the past teachers before us, the sages, right? The gurus, is that sitting with the self is the most powerful thing that we can prescribe to you, to yourself. We reach for the Tylenol bottle, but yet if we sat with a meditated, eye gaze for 3 minutes, you may not need that bottle of Tylenol, right? You may not need that alcohol beverage. You may not need that cigarette, ideally, as yogis, as Rachel is, and as I am, we naturally think about what we put in our body, but we don't think about what we put in our mind. We always think about what's in our body, but where's the mind? Is the mind even stable right now? Is the mind got a bunch of, as I've said, a bunch of stuff, so clean it up every day. What do you do with your garbage? You take it out every day, right? Every day you feed your body.
And you and I were talking a little bit about that even before we really started today, our conversation on what are people looking at and reading and listening to in even today's climate, right? What kind of literal garbage is going into our mind that, I always think of it as if we translated that same garbage or negativity into food, let's say, what kind of food would that be for the body? It would be junk food, right? It would be food that isn't causing us to get better. It would be food that might be causing us to get sick. So just like you said, what are we feeding this mind, the most powerful part of our whole being, right? And so many, like my boyfriend and, I've started looking at social media half the time unless I have to be on there, because it's just, it's too much.
It is. It
right?
really is. And I think you're so right. I think you want to surround yourself with lightness. You want to surround yourself with, as we talked about earlier, about your environment. And what does that environment look like? And, yoga doesn't begin on the mat, it begins off the mat. So how do you go out into this world and be compassionate and be empathetic if in fact you can't give it to yourself?
Mm-hmm.
You haven't really sat with all that stuff, then how can you come from a compassionate place?
Mm-hmm.
How can you be thinking of somebody else, right, Rich? And how can you nourish your body properly? How can you cleanse your body properly, right? And again, it all starts with inner thoughts. If you can't think positive, and again, I want to watch the word positive because it's such an overused word some days. It's just if you can't sit in a place of neutrality, or that's what the ideal place that we want to be in is a neutral mind, then fair enough, deal with the negativity, deal with the positivity, deal with all the garbage and clean it out. And you might find a better place, as you've said, Rach. You've seen it with your own clients.
Mm-hmm.
And who would have thought just sitting still as best as you can, closing down the eyes, whatever the eye gaze is, and doing a quick cleanse, a mind cleanse.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that.
That's right. So many people are worried about physical body cleanses when really they need a mind cleanse, right? We just need a little relaxation in our lives. Like anything else, though, I think a lot of our society doesn't support it, which is unfortunate. And like I said, I think there's a lot of mandatory things out there right now where how come something like meditation isn't mandatory? I think it would be a lot more beneficial for the people in the world, but
Absolutely.
right. So when we're talking about like anything else, whether it's nutrition, whether it's fitness, whether it's meditation, like we're talking about today, you already talked about the time of how long we should be sitting in meditation, or ideally we want to be in meditation to change our bodies. So what about now kind of developing the patterns and the habits? What kind of, if somebody's stuck with it for a certain amount of days, what kind of things can they expect, or what's ideal?
Okay, beautiful, Rach. That's a great segue. So first things first, we call it in yoga a sadhana. A sadhana is your daily practice. And that daily practice is a combination of both meditation as well as physical practice. It depends on what you can fit in one day. So from the yogic science perspective, a daily practice is really where, if you want to live a yogic life or live a dharmic life, you want to have your practice. So you invest back in yourself. And it can be, ideally it's 7 days a week, but maybe it's 5, maybe it's 3, but a daily practice is really where we want to hit. And then when we think about it from a cycle perspective, the human mind works in cycles, is what we've learned. We can use the various cycles, is what I'm going to suggest here, to help us replace unwanted patterns in our life. So if we're doing a 3-minute meditation, I'm going to start slow, 3-minute meditation every day. Let's try 7 days a week. If you did that every day for 40 days, you could change a habit. Imagine that, changing a habit. 40 days, that's all it takes. If you decide to do a 3-minute meditation, and now you'd like to do it for 90 days, well, if you did it for 90 days, it would confirm a habit, a new habit. And then if you're doing that 3 meditation and you're saying, okay, you know what, I've done my 40 days and here's what how I've seen my life change. Now I'm doing it for 90 days. Now I'm looking at, wow, I've got a new habit. And then I'm going to go to 120 days. That new habit is who you are now. That is you. That is the new you.
It's not just what you do, it's who you are.
Exactly. Right? Yeah, exactly. And then for whatever reason, it goes 40, 90, 120. And don't ask me why. Trust me, I've asked this question and many of my yoga teachers training. It then jumps to 1,000 days. And I'm like, 1,000 days? Like, what happened there? And no one's really ever, and I would love to hear from your audience when you send this out. I'd be curious to see if anybody knows why we go 40, 90, 120, and then 1,000 days. Like, that's a killer. But anyways, I do know beautiful people who've mastered the 1,000 days, and I'll tell you why. Why you want to do 1,000 days is now you've mastered the new habit. You now have a brand new habit that is mastered by you and only you. I got to ask why there's this big gap from 120 to 1,000. But listen, try small little pieces. Be patient. Go back to be patient. Do 3 minutes a day. Maybe you're doing it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you're doing it for 40 days that way. Find out what's happening with yourself. Find out if that habit that you had where you're always on edge, or you're always reacting to something, or you're so emotional, it may change. It may very well change on who you are and how you act in your life and who you become as a person.
Right. And I would love to pose a challenge out there to anybody who wants to, start day 1 of 1,000, right? Because so many people, and this is the thing, and that's why, like you said, you don't need to start at 2.5 hours. You don't need to start looking at, okay, I got 1,000 days ahead of me. We look at, it's always the first step, right? The first step, and that's it. That's all we look at. We take the step, stay in the present moment. But how interesting would it be if somebody kind of took on that challenge, did that every day, 1,000 days, journaled, how different a person's life would look?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the beauty. It's showing up for you, showing up once. It doesn't, like, unfortunately, as human beings, we say, I can't meditate because I don't have a room. Okay, find a closet. I can't meditate because I don't have the clothes. Okay, put on some comfortable clothes. Put your pajamas on. If you find comfort in your pajamas, put your pajamas on. I can't, it's too noisy. We'll find a place that's calm. Put some earphones on, right? When I first started meditating, I had to have music. I had to have a meditative music. And there is a plethora of beautiful mantra meditations out there. And again, your call, try that. And it was like, oh, I don't have the time. Well, find the time. Carve out 3 minutes. Go sit in a closet like I did at 4 o'clock in the morning in my pajamas, and it is amazing what comes out at the other end. Again, you love yourself. You have confidence. You radiate. You vibrate from a different frequency, and you love others, and you become this human being that the world needs more of. Let's be honest, Rachel. The more we can sit with ourselves, the more we can enlighten others, and the more we can lift the load on those who need it the most.
Absolutely. Completely agree. Well, thank you so much, Kim. This was wonderful. Thank you for spending this time. Do you have anything else to add? I know we've already gone through a lot, but just wanted to give you that opportunity.
I think, Rachel, the next piece would be if your audience is looking for more and more, there is a plethora of beautiful Kundalini meditations out there that I would be happy to assist in anything. There's prescriptions, we call it the prescribing of meditation, for anxiety, for fear, for grief, for physical ailments, nightmares, death and dying. There's a ton of that out there. So I will open my doors to whoever needs that information. And it is such a beautiful rhythmic way of thinking about, I don't know how to meditate. I don't know how can I help myself? There are tons and tons and tons of beautiful meditations in the Kundalini tradition that I would love to open up to the world. I want to share with the world this practice, the science behind it, and embrace you and making you a better person and making this world a better place for all that are here today, all the people that came before us, the teachers before us, and the future generation to come.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Kim, for being here. I mean, namaste, sat nam, all those things. I really, really appreciate this conversation. My wish for the world is that we had more of these conversations. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because even just talking about this stuff makes my soul feel better.
Awesome.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So very much appreciated. Much love, much blessings. And thanks again, Kim. And we'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Rock and Wellness Podcast. Make sure to visit my website at www.rjowellness.com, where you can subscribe to the show and check out all the show notes. While you're at it, if you found value in this podcast, if you'd simply tell a friend about it, that would help out too. You may choose to join the R.J.O Wellness community to take advantage of the freebies, courses, and coaching that will take your voyage to the next level, or support this podcast with your monthly membership. Until next time, my friends, keep rocking your wellness.